Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's Reddit series video from the subreddit HFY, called The Asimov Chapter Number 5 out of 8, written by Shogun CTN. Alpha Talon, the largest ship is disengaging from the Rothler ship, the Malnet officer reported. I am surprised they can even move over our attacks. Let them flee. We will deal with the Rothler garbage and find the other ship later. It won't be able to live far. Bring us around, Alpha Talon ordered. He had spent 2 weeks tracking down the worthless Rothlan ship, and he was going to strip flesh from bone before the day was done. Sir, the officer shouted, they're not fleeing. They're heading straight for us and are accelerating. Someone on that ship believes that they have a fang and claw to go against the 3 Melnid warships. Good. We have gone far too long without any support. Officer Polat, break off and secure the Rothland ship until I get there. We will discipline these poor, brave fools. Alpha Talon said. The alien ship was tough, but their pulse cannon should have wreaked havoc on their containment fields, he thought. The fight would be over quickly. The Malnid ship's null broke off from his sisters as an unknown ship bore down at them. The Snapjaw was left to assist the Alpha's Longclaw. Officer Palat shook his head at the stupidity of whoever was in charge of the ship flying to its death. How are we doing? Captain Lee asked. Minor injuries being reported, Captain, mostly cuts and bruises from being thrown around. The, systems are, we seem, sorry, sir, I'll have it in a minute, the crewman responded. I'll get there later, Mr. Peterson. He asked over the comm. How are we doing for power? We're fine down here, sir. You have everything the Asimov can give you, came the reply. Commander, the weapons, Captain Lee asked. Point guns are loaded, rail gun is online and primed. Please don't tell me that we're going to send them pictures, Mathis responded grimly. Not this time, Commander. Captain, the one of the 2 smaller ships is breaking off the starboard side, Lieutenant Peterson reported. Let it go, and we'll get after them. Find the biggest ship of the 2 remaining. We're going to punch it right in the nose. Commander, get me a target, Captain Lee ordered. Captain, you're not going to believe this, but I think the bulges on top of the ship are the bridge, Mathis replied with a review of the enlarged images that rapidly approaching ships. The news surprised Captain Lee. From what he had heard of the Malnid and the First Hetek, they were a warring race. He never expected that any group that fought in space would be stupid enough to leave their bridge exposed on the top of their ships. In contrast, the Asimov wasn't a purpose-built warship, but even it had a bridge buried deep in the heart of the ship, surrounded by many feet of titanium-reinforced metal and nanocarbon armor. Multiple redundant cameras and sensor systems in various parts of the ship provided them with their ears and eyes. There was an observation deck he sometimes liked to spend time in, but the nerve center of the ship was protected better than anything else. Commander, note for the record that the Asimov was fired upon without provocation by an unknown hostile force while peacefully rendering aid to the alien ship in distress. All hails to the attackers have gone unheeded. The Asimov is now defending itself and its newfound friends, now that we have satisfied the lawyer's commander. Weapons are free. You may fire in the target of opportunity, the captain said. Commander Mathis nodded and turned his attention to the weapon controls. The 2 turret-mounted 50mm cannons were capable of firing 6,000 rounds per minute. The Asimov carried 100,000 rounds thanks to a generous discount offered by the arms manufacturer on Earth. These smaller guns were overshadowed by the railgun the Asimov carried. That weapon, by 10-kilogram shells, accelerated the hardened ammunition to 30 kilometers per second at the rate of 2 for each second. He could control them all from the 3 fire control stations built in the ship, another redundant safety feature. Light exploded from the trigger of the 2 alien ships before the Asimov could get into range of its own guns. Lieutenant Peterson was ready for them this time, though, and without the last light holding them back, she had the Asimov on an erratic approach, constantly changing her vectors and not giving the alien ships any easy target like before. One blast caught the Asimov in its hull, but the other shots fled harmlessly by. Finally, the light blinked on the screen and alerting Commander Mathis that he was in range. The targeting computers locked onto the selected targets, and he felt the satisfying click as he fired the cannons first. The railgun then swiveled, and he thought he could feel the soft swamp under his feet as it fired. Alpha Talon watched in shock as the ship approached, darting more quickly than anything that he had ever seen. It was as large as the Long Claw, but was obviously much more agile. Though its hull was scorched and damaged after taking 2 full volleys from the 3 Melnid ships, it still seemed fully operational. As most of the shots of the Long Claw and the Snap Jaw slid by, alerts appeared on his screen. "We have multiple sensor readings, Alpha. They're extremely small," the officer called out. "How many?" he demanded, as he watched the tiny flickering lights suddenly appearing. "1,000. The officer started before he was cut off by hundreds of explosions lighting up the hull of the Long Claw. Pieces of hull were drifting apart in tiny invisible projectiles. The bridge exploded in chaos as emergency warnings began blaring. "Alpha, multiple hull failures are being reported. One section of the hull is completely gone," an officer shouted. 2 large explosions then rocked the Long Claw as the alien ship flew by, throwing its crew out of their seats and sending blinding flashes of light across the length of the ship. "Turn the ship, all power to containment fields. What happened? Did another ship attack us?" Alpha Talon shouted over the din. "No, sir, it came from that ship. It's turning. Snapjaw, get between us, shield us from that ship," Alpha Talon ordered. "Sir, they're coming back. They seem to be ignoring the Snapjaw completely. We have sensor readings again." The crew of the Long Claw had only a microsecond to react as the tiny lights rippled along the alien ship again until explosions splashed against the hull, wreaking havoc on the metal. Any alarms that were not already sounding added themselves to the chaos. "Do we have containment?" the Alpha roared. The question became moot as soon as it was asked at the bridge split apart in blinding explosion. Alpha Talon could only watch helplessly as the bridge was suddenly exposed to the harshness of the outer space. As his blood boiled in the vacuum, his last thoughts were the dark ship that flashed by as he briefly wondered what the symbols ASIMOV meant before his world went blank. The Asimov broke away from the alien ship and itself apart. The railgun had hit just below the bridge, and the thin armor of the ship could do nothing against the sheer kinetic impact of the shell hitting at such speeds. The containment fields were never designed to address this kind of brute force attack, and the systems began to fail, so did the containment fields. The alien ship lay lifeless as Lieutenant Pearson pulled the Asimov into a hard turn. "Well done, Commander," Lieutenant Pearson. "Mr. Peterson, I know we took a few shots on the other ship, and we're pushing the Asimov pretty hard. Are we okay down there?" Captain Lee asked. "We lost something taking those last few hits, Captain. I'll figure it out later, but all major systems are a go," Peterson replied over the comm. "Captain, the remaining ship is behind us is veering away but still firing," Lieutenant Peterson said. "Close the gap, Lieutenant. Their guns may be weaker, but they have a longer range," Captain Lee said as the ship was rocked by a few more shots. "They got a good head start as we passed. We're going to have to push it, and we're going to be less maneuverable at those speeds. They'll probably get a few more hits in before we catch them. If we do," Lieutenant Pearson replied. "Merde!" Neve's head was throbbing as she picked herself up from the floor. She felt something running down her face and put her hand up to her head. She pulled her fingers back and saw blood on the tips. Suddenly, she realized that her helmet had broken. The environmental suits were made to keep out bacteria and viruses, not for battle. "Too late now," as she said, as she reached up for the clasps. As she pulled off the helmet and the air felt warm against her face, something smelled really good. "Varro!" Neve threw her helmet aside and struggled to get up. The kitchen was covered in food and utensils. Suddenly, alarms were going off all over the ship. "Varro! Varro! Where are you?" she yelled. If the ship was losing power again, they had to find others and get somewhere safe. Varro was left out of evacuation suit in the bay, so neither of them had any protection of the loss of atmosphere. She clambered over to the larger table that dominated the kitchen. The emergency lighting made it harder to see as she kept stepping on pots and the other kitchen equipment. She made it back to the stove where she had last seen Varro and looked around frantically. "Varro! Varro! Where are you? Something's happened!" Neve shouted over the alarms. Suddenly, she saw some yellow fur buried under the collapsed shelving. She started putting the debris off the unmoving Rothler. As she removed the large bag of food, she took a deep breath. Varro had an ugly gash on the side of her fur where it was stained with a dark, almost black color. Neve grabbed a cloth from the floor and did her best to staunch the wound. She tried a couple more of the cloths together and then used them to bind the makeshift bandage. She had no formal medical training, but she had read enough that she knew that you had to stop the bleeding. Dr. Chan would have to do the rest, she thought, as she slowly picked up Varro and made her way to the hallway. The alien was surprisingly light, even in the reduced gravity. "Dr. Chan, are you there?" she called. Silence greeted her. "Captain, Peterson, is anyone there? Varro is hurt. We need a doctor. Anyone?" The comm must be damaged, she thought. She would have to get back to the Asimov herself. "Back to Bay 2, First Itik said as a small crew began to filter out of the hallway. "Evacuation suits on." Second Lytton ran up. "What happened? The engine was stable." "Malnid," First Itik replied. 3 attack ships." Second Lytton paned nervously. "What of the Asimov? Can they protect us?" First Itik placed a paw on the second shoulder. "We are alone, Lytton. They fled. They had no choice. We must help the others. Where is little Varro?" "I have not seen her. I think she was with the human," Second Lytton said, fear rising in him. If the powerful humans had run away, what would happen to them? "Gather the others. We need to find a place to hide. Meet me near the engine room. Don't think the Malnid will destroy the ship, but if they come back, they surely will board us. I will find Varro. If the Malnid board and I'm not there to take the crew someplace safe, if they find you, hold them off for as long as you can," First Itik said, handing the pulse gun to the Second Lytton. What if my courage fails?" Second Lytton asked. "Keep the crew alive, Second. If you feel surrender is the better option, you'll have done your duty. There would be no shame in that," First Itik said as he disappeared down the hallway. Neve stopped in the hallway, unsure where to go. The ship seemed small enough when the lights were on, but now that the hallways were dark, and with the alarm sounding, she was disoriented. By Bay 2, she would have been down this hallway, but she had run into a dead end near the supply room. Varro was still not moving, and she felt helpless as her friend seemed to get lighter as the minutes passed. Suddenly, she felt the ship shudder again. Not as violently this time. Then a loud shearing noise vibrated through the metal of the ship. Had something happened to the Asimov, she wondered. She turned down another unfamiliar hallway and almost screamed as a fury bundle slammed into her. First Itik was sent reeling back and slammed into the wall. "First Itik, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there," Neve said. First Itik rubbed his head with one paw. "Varro," he said as he saw the Rothler. "What happened?" he asked. "I don't know, she's hurt. We have to get her back to the Asimov so that Dr. Jan can help us. She's lost a lot of blood," Neve said. "I'm afraid we can't," First Itik said sadly. "The Malnid have attacked. Your ship is gone." Gone? The explosion? Neve tried to process the words, and suddenly she felt very weak. End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this dose of science fiction fun. I hope that you enjoyed. And if you did, please don't forget to support the author from the link down below. But if you want to support this channel, there are links as well down below for you to help with. But the easiest way would be to share this video. And if you are so inclined, subscribe as well. I will see you all in the next episode, and I hope that you all have a fantastic time until then. Cheers.